Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Kings of War 4th edition Ask Me Anything. With us today, you've got myself. I am Kyle. We've got Alessio Cavatore, the legendary rules designer, and jumped on board to get Kings of War into the best state it can be, and Ronnie Renson, the resident wrecking ball of the stream. We're going to be joined by Matt Gilbert in here just a little bit. He's actually stuck in traffic at the moment. First of all, can everyone hear us? Hear us, see us, everything? Can drop me a comment just to make sure that everything is working technically. Sounds good. I got a laughing face from Countercharge, so that's a good sign. So what we're going to do is we submitted a survey out there to you guys, and basically we were looking for as many responses as we could on questions. We got 115 responses, which is fantastic. Some very cool things that I can kind of show off and give you an idea on stats. So very interestingly with the players, this is something that I found very cool because we have a really even split of the kind of players that gave responses. So pretty even slice of the pie for game stores, gaming clubs, events, and tournaments. So really nice to see. The one thing that I found very interesting as well is we've got a lot of veteran players in Kings of War, which in a new edition, that does make sense. And it's also who we're talking to, but we got to get recruiting, guys. We got to get some new people in here, new questions. And then one last look, we'll look at the player factions and basically on the responses, how many of you are playing what armies? We see Undead is at the top of the list, and Night Stalkers, unsurprisingly to me at least, is right behind them. So quite a spread, a pretty even spread. You know, you'd expect Zerkala to be lower, but you know, having worked on that army as much as I did, I need to see more of you collecting that army and getting the dogs on the table. So one thing we're going to do is we're going to go through a number of questions that were submitted, and while we're probably not going to be able to get through everything, I think that we're going to get to quite a bit, and that's going to be a starting point. What we will do is absolutely read everything that has been submitted, and we will keep it in mind for future FAQ and errata. That becomes very important. And hello, Matt, welcome.
Damn it, he made it. Damn it. Yeah. Purposefully crashed a few cars on the way into Keyworth this evening.
Yeah.
So welcome, Matt. Matt is the head of our studio and the walking Panathor library of lore information in his head. So we've got a lot of really interesting questions. I think it's good that we get started. Ronnie, anything you want to lead us into before we start throwing some questions out there?
No, thank you for joining us. Thanks for coming. It's good to see some names here. Haven't people kept running off the booze so far? No, I've just found a bottle of Elsie Mo that's part of the Christmas collection with stuff hidden away. So,
okay, I'll go with Amaro del Monte.
It's still the middle of the workday for me, so I have nothing.
No more than the usual bottle of gin by this point of the day.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bottle of King's of War rum right next to me, so could always crack that open and get into it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
really, I'll tell you another thing. Yeah, it's great to see everybody here. We've got some great things. I think we've looked specifically. I think when we went through the 120 questions, we looked for big thematic ones. What have a few people asked? I think we're looking to give you some clarity over some of the things that we think. Okay, we've seen how people have read it two different ways. Here's a definitive answer. Let's run with that. Some of them that were just people misread. Anyway, some crunchy stuff, some reassurance about some of the big stuff. Clearly, these 2 books a year from 1 books a year. Victoria Wargaming. I do indeed represent the hair faction. I am significantly hairier than all of them, yeah. So it'll be good, and we will like I said, all of this stuff that comes in will go into the FAQ and errata. Everything will get read. Matt and Alessia will pick it all up, and we hope to have a kind of working one for next weekend at Clash of Kings Oz, where I will be in attendance, and then a proper one in a month's time after a few big tournaments, where we can take the feedback on board and make sure that anything that is causing constant questions has a really clear, definitive answer to allow us to chunk through.
So we haven't really shied away from some of the more difficult questions, but I'm going to start off with kind of a softball for you, and this is going to be directed towards Alessio. A very open-ended question, but Jason Sutton asked, "What is the main differences from 3rd edition to 4th edition, and why did you make them?" That's a loaded question.
Yes, how many hours do I have to to answer that? Well, it's a big question. It's a big question, and I'm sure we cannot go through every single change, but we could talk about the main things, I guess. And you guys, please prod me if I miss something big. I would say that the first thing I've done is going through the latest version, third edition, and it was a big moment of not really making changes, but more representing the rules, just trying to remove some language that accumulated through years and years and years of development, of course. It always happens with all war games, right? So, because basically when you present a rule and you know there's an issue sometimes in gameplay where that rule may trigger something when it interacts with a special rule later on, like, movement works like this, but unless, of course, the flying unit will work differently if you have the fly special rule. But through the years, a lot of this text had made its way into the rule. So a rule will read, you move like this, you ignore terrain, blocks your movement, unless, of course, you have the fly rule. This is a very simple example, but it's just to explain the fact that for a veteran player, like the majority of you guys there, that's absolutely useful, because you go, right, this rule works in this case, and there's an exception. This is a reminder of that exception, of the special rule that is presented later in the rules. But unfortunately, with that, what happens is that if you're a newbie, if you're a complete new guy, and you start reading the rules, then you start to read the rule, you start to understand how the movement works, and you get hit by exceptions. And your brain goes, well, what? Fly? What is that? So the first mission, if you want, was to actually take a lot of those references and remove them. Because, again, to make the main objective here for me was the mission 1 was to make the game more accessible. That diagram that you showed, Kyle, was exactly the explanation of why we need to make it more accessible, because to get more people into the hobby, to get more people playing, new players, people that haven't played before. So in basically streamlining the main rules, making them short, concise, and easy for people that are just beginning, so they don't need all that level of detail. They don't need to know about these other rules, these other exceptions, etc. Make it simple. Therefore, the rulebook was then divided into a core section, as simple, as short as possible, and then a advanced rules section, an advanced section of the game, where you put back all the nitty gritty, all the detail, all the exceptions and the diagrams explaining. So trying to make it a tool that was good for beginners and for veterans. And frankly, some people will probably always play with the beginners version, like myself and Ronnie, because we don't know all the rules. After a little while, we forget, and we try to make things up on the fly while in the game. And some people need more specific rules. Some people just play it more like a role play game, and a giant role play experience. So some people will be happy to stay there. Some people will be obviously delving in depth into the detail. So that was the first change, and I've spoken already way too long. So
yeah, that's one. But make it more simple, clean it up, and then make sure the crunchy stuff that has the veteran players excited is in a special place where they can find it, so that we can get back recruiting. I think we had a wonderful growing gaming system, and I think we've still got it, but it's harder to grow it. And I think we needed to sort that out. And I think there's also it's been a while since Alessio had looked at it. And I think it was wonderful to have someone with totally clean eyes and have been writing rules for 30 years who I hate to say nice things about Alessio, but he is a professional. He has written more game systems than anyone else. And just having him come back in and look at it, which was his baby back in the day, and go, yeah, let's just slick it up a bit. And that brings with it some of the things we'll talk about later, which is a few bits of people like, you bastards, you've done this. We're like, yes, we have, but give us time, and we'll talk about that. But if we don't get the runway right, the plane ain't taking off. And I think we needed to make sure that the run was absolutely rock solid. If we had one clanger now, we could correct it. If we had 6, that's it. Game over, guys. There's no more Kings of War. So I think we've got everybody that's come to me, and I'm seeing them in the comments, and I've seen it through my messages. When they've played it, they go, okay, I was playing my army list from 3rd and applying it to some of the 4th rules. And I think what people are now doing is playing 4th and realizing that change there is affected because of that change and this change. When you bring the whole together, still Kings of War, it's just better than ever. That's what I believe. And Alessio and Matt and Kyle, plus all the playtesters and the gamers, are the reason for that.
I think we've also got quite a bit of crunchy rules questions that can probably be answered fairly quickly. And I think there's a lot of people that are listening to hear the answers to some of these. So let's dive into some of those kind of questions. Tim here is asking if we can clarify if the rally rule affects the unit itself with rally.
Yeah, we looked into that, and rules that work like that would specify the unit itself and units within a certain range, within 6 inches, whatever, are affected this way and that way. If a rule doesn't say that, then it doesn't. In the case of rally, it doesn't say that. Basically, the +1 nerve is to the units around it. So, and imagine that as an officer that gives a confidence boost to the troops around it. It doesn't give +1 nerve to itself because it already has a higher nerve. Right? Imagine that it's inbuilt. It kind of brings you more to the level of the officer. So
it'd be kind of silly to print the nerve and then always say, well, it's always +1 above this.
Yeah.
So it's included.
It would be weird. Like I have permanently a +1, so I never use the nerve value that I have. It would be weird.
Right.
So it doesn't.
Okay, so this one, that one's easy. This one has come up in a lot of different formats and ways, and it's a lot around yielding. So Ivan is asking, yielding individuals, are they ignored for movement and shooting? Does that mean that the units can't count as engaged with them?
Yeah. I read this when I saw some of the questions. I read carefully the yielding rule, and I think we were trying to be helpful when we added the words when moving and shooting, for movement and shooting, and that those words are not helpful. Those words actually make it worse. So we'll have to errata it or FRQ it. The intent is definitely that you can always ignore these units. The only thing you cannot do is you cannot end your move on top of them for very physical reasons. So obviously you cannot put your unit on top of them. But at any other point, you can ignore them. Therefore, so the sentence should have been, they can always be ignored, as opposed to they can always be ignored for moving and shooting. Because I can see now that leads you to for example, questions like, right, so when I'm issuing the orders to this unit, I'm not literally moving it or shooting. Therefore, can I ignore the guys? And the answer is yes, you can always ignore them. And so applying that principle very literally of, let's play as if this character wasn't here. The only thing that I cannot do is finish the move on top of it. That's the spirit, that's the intent. We'll massage that sentence to make sure that that's what it says. But yeah, so that is the intent.
Awesome. I think, no, definitely. I think that, even like post-reform combats and stuff like that, where you're still stuck with an individual, knowing that the intent is that you're always ignoring them, that's great.
And as a classic example, when you try to add a few words to make it go better, and actually often less is more. Kind of reinforces the point I made at the start of, less stuff, normally better.
All right, so this is one I'm going to throw at Matt and Ronnie, really, because this is an important one to a lot of Mantic fans, especially the ones that are longtime fans. So Grant has asked, are there plans to replace first edition sculpts? The first edition elves and dwarves are massively below the current standard of models that Mantic produces.
Those tools are still, I paid for them now. God damn it! I want the money. Show me the money.
The short answer is yes. We've got plans for the whole range. We're aware that there's models that are 10, 12, maybe
17
even longer years old, and some that are
17.
months old. And things have evolved in that time. The game's evolved, our ability to sculpt has evolved, the materials we use have evolved. So yes, absolutely, we've got plans for everything. There are models that we've discontinued because we can't make them anymore. That doesn't mean that they've gone away forever. There'll be units that we bring back with whole new sculpts in cool new ways. So yes, have no fear.
And I think it's the start. Just to give some context, over these frightening 17 years, Kings of War started out as a free giveaway with some elf packs and the hard plastic discs. I don't know if anyone remembers the old cassette cases.
Yeah.
Second edition got a little boost from a world explosion, and suddenly we had to invent a whole new of armies and welcome a whole load of new players that had armies, which was both a huge blessing. It quadrupled our player base, but brought with it a whole load of issues. And that's my favorite army, and what are you doing about it? I think this is the first time we've been able to approach an edition with a long-term plan. Every core army has 1, 2, 3 sets of plastics. We know what they are. We've got the money. If we want to do a new faction like the Zikali, we can just do it. In the third edition, still, we were asking the Vanguard Kickstarter to pay for the tooling for the Northern Alliance and Night Stalkers, I want to say. Is that right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's second edition. Anyway, at some point in the past, we were asking our skirmish games to pay for hard plastics to go with the core game. And now we're dropping like crazy amounts of money. For God's sake, don't ever tell my wife what we're spending on tooling. On a whole new army that comes out with all of this, all of the resin, all of the things that are coming. And as I'm sure a few of you experienced, we're experiencing some growing pains when we're doing that at the same time as Epic. But we're able to come to this game now and go, this is an IP we love. It's a developed world, and it's growing like crazy. It's got boats in it. So I think it's really exciting that we're going to be able to come back to where we started and make them better. Bigger and better.
Awesome. There were a lot of questions around the models. I mean, we saw this one of their plans to update older models as Basilean Alohi or Abyssal Dwarf Mortal Guard. That's the same kind of vein. These are questions that, fall into the same category, but people were asking basically around the entire range of Kings of War. So
Yes, unequivocally, yes. I think we literally have sold our metal casting machines last week. Where we have finished metal. We are going into resin off these STLs. I'll talk about that later. But yeah, absolutely, everything is going to come up. Everything is coming up, and everything we want is the standard of the Zikali, of the Trident Realms, of the Twilight Kin, of the stuff we've been producing, both IP wise and quality of models wise. The Twilight Kin are now our army. The Northern Alliance is brilliant.
So one of the questions that we saw, that we saw come up quite a bit.
Sorry,
go ahead, Alessio.
I just saw that there's a question, Casual Sex Fridays, right? Saying, so you can shoot at the unit engaged with a yielding individual. And I guess the answer to that is like, well, imagine what's that? Ooh.
That's where we've come from. We're now making flying dwarfs on birds and really cool heroes in plastic. Do carry on, Alessio. I'll just distract you. I was just trying to give some eye candy.
I think that's a good question. It exemplifies exactly the principle here is, okay, so I have a unit, a target, which one of my friendly characters is engaging as a yielding character. Then you can go, okay, I can pretend that thing is not there. I ignore it. It's not there. Can I shoot the unit? Yes. There is nothing there. Ignore it. Both players can ignore it. So the idea is always trying to make it as bad as possible for the yielding characters. So yes, you can absolutely ignore them. Yes. And shoot them. Yes. And shoot the unit.
One question we've seen pop up quite a bit, and it was repeated in the survey a lot, is around bases and the legacy use of certain phrases and bases. So why use legacy phrasing for heavy and monstrous infantry when even the new Zikali or Trident Realm have these units? They're in the starter set, so they're not legacy. What was the thought process behind that?
I guess in hindsight, legacies we probably could have worded it better. I admit that. What I'm intending to do, because I've seen some requests for that, is when we do the FAQ, I'll do a matrix. So these are the unit types, these are the unit sizes, this is your base size. So I think that will just clarify it for everyone. So really, what we were trying to say is we don't use the term monstrous infantry or heavy infantry anymore in the core rules. That's part of the taking that clutter out that Alessio was talking about. But if we say something's heavy infantry, all we mean is it's infantry on a bigger base size. That's what we were trying to say. So that legacy was old terminology within the core rules. We just tried to remove some of that clutter. So yes, I can see how it could have been slightly confusing.
Yeah,
so the important thing for me there is that, any rules that affect infantry also affect heavy infantry.
Yes.
That's the way of thinking of it. And that we're going to put out a document that shows the bases and what's available to make it a little bit easier.
I will do that. Yeah.
For new players. Yeah. Okay. Back to another rules question. So good old Donnie. If a fearless unit withdraws through a friendly unit, is it wavered? The rule says that a nerve check and technically fleeing through the ally is separate. So it's not a nerve check. It just can get wavered.
So there is no nerve check. Therefore, yes, the fearless unit is wavered. I think the way to look at that is that, for example, zombies, things that you imagine they're not afraid, they're not confused. But what certainly would happen if you have to withdraw through a regiment of friends is that the unit is disorganized. It's completely lost every semblance of rank and files. So that wavering represents the unit having to effectively physically get back into ranks and files, and therefore having to spend time to be, or at least the necromancer in the case will have to think that unit back into a semblance of order. So yes, it is wavered because there is no nerve test. That's the rules as written. If you want to justify in your head why that is because the unit is kind of mixed up and lost formation. So it's reassuming formation.
So one of the more difficult things, obviously, as part of 4th edition was the reduction of both units and even factions getting rolled into parent lists. So one question that was asked quite a bit was, when will X Army, Order of the Green Lady, or Order of the Brotherhood return? That's a question that obviously these players are feeling a little bit left out. So do we have any plans for those kinds of armies?
We do, but the answer is it depends on the army. So some of them for now we've left some flavour of those armies in. Some of them, for law reasons, the law's moved on. So something like the Order of the Brother Mark, they were always being subsumed into Basileia, and law-wise that's pretty much complete now. We'll see going forwards the Order of the Green Lady are leaving nature for very valid reasons. There are some left, but that's part of an evolution of the overall Brotherhood story, which will which we will bring in future books. So so the armies are taking shape around the law. The two are knitted together, which I think in the past has been maybe a little bit of disconnect, but we're really tying those things together now. And we'll as the armies evolve, we will bring back some units that have disappeared when we can do cool new models for them and things. And when like the Varangur is a good example. For now, we've left some flavour of the Varangur in the Northern Alliance army, but we've been talking about and really want to bring back the Varangur as a range, whether that's STL or whatever. We're very, very keen to flesh that army out and give it the light of day. We're not retconning anything from a law point of view. The Varangur are the Varangur, but when we can get to them, they'll get some treatment.
And I think they will be Twilight Kin, not an army that existed in a different universe at a different time, reworked. So, can I just once again state my caveat and warning? If Mantic don't make it in plastic, don't start building that army. It was a way to enable you to use your old models from old gaming systems and come and play Kings of War. But it breaks my heart when I see people starting a hobby project that I think, we're just about to do that in plastic. So I've said it many times, I've said it repeatedly on blogs and for hundreds of years. We don't make it plastic, We have no commitment to it. We don't know what you're building. We guess it's probably XGW old world figures, but we don't know. It could be bloody Croxigores, whatever. When we come to an army that we've never done plastic, we will not do it like anything that's ever been done before, because that's our opportunity to either kill it off if we think French Knights are boring, or create something genuinely our own. And, for example, when we do Kings and Men, which will be massive, it will be massive. It won't be a German 16th century Landsknechts nor French Knights. It will be our take on the core of the humanity that hangs together. Things. So just my caveat: please be careful when you start a hobby army where we don't have some plastics for it, because you're building on sandstone, you're building on sandpaper, sand,
just sand,
right? Sand.
Yes. Less is more.
Another rules question. This is repeated quite a bit, but people have some confusion on spell ward. Is it intended to work on all spells and not just the magic missile type?
We'll have to go and read the rule. Yeah, that's the premise. Whenever there's a level this technical, I have to go and read the rules. I don't remember everything by heart. This was a few games ago.
I think, Matt, you had talked about this at one point with the intention being yes.
Yeah. Well, and this is something to do. So there are several of these questions that we've harvested from various places, including here, that that Alessio, myself, and Kyle need to go back and just agree. Yes, we all agree with that. That's the answer. But yeah, certainly from my point of view, the answer is yes. Spell ward is spell ward regardless of the spell type. It is a magic missile or not a magic missile. Spell ward is just spell ward.
It does start by all spells, both friend and enemy.
Yeah, I think the confusion was around modifiers and stuff. And one place
because normal spells don't get modified.
But spell ward is spell ward, just full stop.
Yeah, I agree with that interpretation. Absolutely. Yeah. All spells. Yeah.
All right, so let's get into some tough ones. Kyle, Dino Lord Pool. Why don't more or warlord class heroes have major impacts on the overall battalion theme, and champions have an aura, local buffs, etc.?
Right now, because there are so many armies and it's a new game, so and this is probably addressing some of the things we may talk earlier. In which case, I'm answering some questions in advance. I know there's been some people looking at some of the armies and saying, are these more powerful than others? Is this one more bland than others? What's going on? I'll be very honest. Yes, I definitely did strip all the armies back. I did that for several reasons. One, Alessio had taken the game to a different place. We'd done our decluttering. We changed things. So the game plays differently. We'd introduced things like command orders, and we changed the way that armies were constructed in the first place. Change all those things. You can't just take the 3rd edition armies where they'd got to in their edition and just drop them straight into that mix, because that would have been wrong. Everyone would have said, why have you done that? So I very deliberately stripped the armies back to a point where we can now evolve them as people learn the game, as the game itself develops, as the armies develop, as we bring out new units, as the lore moves on and we bring out new champions and things like that. And we can add those layers now back in with the players coming on the journey with us, just like we have in other editions. So at the end of 2nd edition, the armies didn't look like they looked at the beginning of 2nd edition. At the end of 3rd edition, they look very different to how they started the beginning of 3rd edition. And that evolution will happen again now. But we needed to strip the armies back and not start again, because the armies in 4th edition are much more evolved than they were, say, in 2nd edition. But we needed to come back to a baseline so that we can now all evolve and go on that journey again together as the game evolves, as we learn things, as we get tournament results, etc., etc. So, if we've got something wrong, just like we've always done, we'll fix it. If something's too powerful and it's too easy to unlock, we'll fix that.
Kyle, can I just jump in? I've been reading the comments. I've just got a couple of quick answers to 4 or 5 questions, if that's okay.
Yep.
Champions on Companion very soon. I think we've got The Zicali champion is coming out very soon, and alongside that, individually, the Basilean and the Bloody Cardinal. So we're going to be putting that up on the companion very shortly. So that's going to be another game system on the companion. So that's Mr. Lee. I hope you're still well in Boston. Would love to know. I can't say you fulfilling the other 810 anyway. Right, sorry, I can't remember. We'd love to know the future plans are for Ambush, Vanguard, and even the real Kings of War RPG. Oh, there you go, you've got it. Loving Kings of War, get newbies through it. And thank you very much. I'm glad you like it. We do too. Firstly, we are going to be very much just by positioning the game back where we have. Those core rules, we feel, for the first time in a while, are very newbie friendly. Matt and I have a meeting to talk all things Vanguard 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think so. When you're back from Oz, yep.
So it's bubbling up. I think Ambush, we're actually just going to come out and clarify it and go, 4th is already Ambush compatible friendly. In fact, it's exactly, we probably just need to go back to the boxes and go, Champions was a game in and of its own right. Ambush was only a stepping stone to Kings of War. You couldn't really, yet when I beat people, the number of people who said, I just play Ambush games. I play 15 Ambush games for every 1 games of Kings of War I play. I think what they're saying is, we love playing a game in an hour. And I think what we'll probably do is put something out, not this year, maybe next year, where we go, here's 10 pre-built armies, here's 10 packs where you've got, build this and play it. Where with Champions, your hero is a little bit OP. He has a greater impact on the game than he does in Kings of War. But I think we'll build something that is 750 points, which is pure Kings of War. It won't be different, which might put some scenarios out for it, but essentially allows you to play a very satisfying game on your way to building up your big army, or just play that game because you like that army and you want to try different things with it. So all of that question, that's why I asked it, is all on our radar and all things that we're going to keep doing. And now we've got the game to where it needed to be, both user-friendly, newbie-friendly and vet-friendly. We can then backfill that about all the cool things we can hang off it.
So this is one that's very important. It did show up in our questions very much, but Carl just joined here and basically looking to know if we've covered any updates, if there will be any updates to the armies that come in later books. So a lot of questions around this. So plans basically to do this in a way that we update other factions when we say we're putting a spotlight on certain factions.
Yeah, 100%. And I understand people's trepidation, or just trying to understand where we're going with these 2 books a year. The intention for these books is to drive the lore on. That's the main focus of these books, and that's when we say there are 4 highlighted armies in that book, is because we're telling their story in the grand arc of things that we're doing, through the invasion of the Zicali and all the things that are happening in and around that and how the world moves on. If I know people liked the Clash of Kings and the regular updates that all armies got every year, these books are no different. If you think about how the last Clash of Kings that we put out, there were 2 full army lists in it. There was a whole load of lore in it, and then all the other armies got the regular treatment of points value tweaks and maybe a new unit and some balancing of stats and things like that. These books are no different. So yes, we'll feature 4 armies and they'll get 4 army lists, but on top of all the lore they get. But then we'll look at all the other armies. And if there's some things that tournaments have thrown up, or players are saying this is not powerful enough, or my army's lacking this, we'll deal with those. Obviously, we didn't do that in the very first book in Invasion because it came out at the same time as everything else. So that wasn't possible. In the next book, Fracture, that comes out, we'll have a little bit of information at that point, and there'll be some obvious things that we can fix. But by the time we get to the book at the end of this year, everyone will have played for a year. It will be exactly like a Clash of Kings, and we will do an update for all armies. If everyone at that point needs a new command order, or some command orders need bringing up in some spice, we will do that. So you think of them like a Clash of Kings, but you're getting them twice a year. But you know what? If you're not interested in all that extra lore, which is what they're for, but you're mad, why would you? Why would you not want to? You can just take us out a subscription to the companion. All those rules are going to be there and updated, just like we've always done. We're not out to unbalance this game.
Yeah,
and the reputation is for balance.
Yeah, correct. I don't think we'll talk about balance, and there's a question about it later. But the principle is, when I spoke to Matt and we said, what do we want to do over the next 4 years? We said we wanted to fill out the IP. People always say to us, blah, 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 and we want this world, we want more of it. And we said, okay, well, let's launch the new army that comes smashing into just about everywhere. And then let's change it from these things might happen to they start happening. What's going on in Chill, what's going on in and then set Dungeon Saga 2 in there, set Vanguard in there. And each book is going to move that on. And then when you have a summer campaign, it's going to be part of this. And the map, and I've said this a few times in Arena, when you look at the map from the 2nd edition to the 3rd edition to the 4th edition, it's changed. And most of those changes were through summer campaigns. And as technology is allowing us to do more and more things, we're going to be able to start building a genuinely living world where your game, your tournament, your event will have an effect. Now, I think it'll probably be 5th when we start doing that, but in 4th, we're going to get this continuous narrative. So I love Matt's story that Olaf, who was one of the characters in Dungeon Saga, who was a thrusting, vibrant young man dressed only in leathers and greased oil with a big chopper.
That's an
now
axe,
a 50-year-old. Sorry, what?
That was an axe you were referring to there.
Obviously. Well, I don't know what you thought I was referring to. Tripod, as he's known in our world. He's now an old man. He's grown up. Now, fortunately, because I play dwarves and they're much better, our hero is just hitting his peak. He's just about to become the king of all kings. But the story is going to keep moving on. And I think that's kind of exciting. And I think there's a whole heap of cool IP and gameplay. And Alex, who is there today, is brought in to both, recruit new gamers and retain the ones we've got. And we think the best way of retaining is by playing games. And I can guarantee you now, 5 years from now, everybody will remember when the Zikali arrived. That was an invasion. Just like we can remember the Rift, just like we remember the Abyss, we remember the death of the Brotherhood. But these things really take time to make the big impact. And I think we've now built a plan where the story is going to keep going on. And alongside that, the game's going to keep getting better. And if you don't want to buy the books, I understand that. They're bloody expensive. There's tons of art, there's tons of writing, there's editing and everything else. Just take a subscription out. If you just play the games, just have a sub. And printing a hardback book and shipping them halfway around the world, buy a PDF. If you just want to sit and have a read of it, the PDF is, significantly less. So across whichever, and if you're in Argentina, how the heck do you get hold of our rules? We can't ship stuff there. It's impossible to get. And that's because hi Argentina and hi Chile. I love you guys. I'll see you in September.
There's a related question.
When we move to the other language, okay, we'll come to that. Very soon, Spain and France. We'll do that. But basically, we're trying to address as many issues to make this a global game as possible. Only when the 2-player book, the beginner book, will be available in French and Spanish within the next 2 or 3 months. It's already written. We need to print it. We need to tell our distributors about it and get them to bring it in. We have no plans to do the 800-page rule book in any other language than English. We will have the 2-player sets in Spanish and French and German as soon as we've got it sorted out, and probably Italian as well, because, hello, Alex, we love you too. Won't be able to stop themselves. And they'll be downloadable. They're recruiters. They're to help people join, reinforcing the recruitment message. But if you try and do the whole rule book, it's instantly out of date. And what we'll be able to do in time is have things like the command rules, Spanish, Italy, French, and German, always up to date, always online. So we can use the translations for recruiting, getting people over the hurdle of learning, and then any key assets you need, army lists and everything else, you can have those in your language online. So big plans. We just need to get the actual release of both Epic and Kings of War out of the way to allow us to do all this funky stuff next. So language is coming, and free rules too, which I'm sure that one's going to come.
That was another question, yes.
Yeah.
But in line with the prior question where we were talking about the books and that structure and layout, Rick had asked one that is a very long question that we had to put in a ticker. But
with
with
the gradual roll-up new one with Aishin game ban, the avoidance of codex creep prevalent in other gaming systems, those armies that will be updated last will be at a disadvantage compared to earlier updated armies. Is this guy a lawyer? Fewer commands. I think Matt, you kind of addressed
a lot of lawyers.
what's happening in October, but have a go at it again.
Yeah, as I said, I think this alludes back to the answer I gave. We've got no intention of having armies left behind or armies going streets ahead in any kind of codex creep in that way. What people are used to in the Clash of Kings, they should expect in these expansion books as well. As I said, if the data that we get, the feedback from players that we get shows that this is out of whack, that's out of whack, there's not enough synergy in this list, or we introduce new things and we're driving the lore forwards and we decide that actually we're going to go back to the Zakali because they've learnt stuff and they need a new unit, and actually, I don't know, the undead, yes, their book's not planned till X, but they need this thing doing to them. All that will happen as part of a normal Clash of Kings style balancing update and stuff for all armies. Like I said, if it's likely that we'll decide that yes, we're slightly out of whack on some command orders, and everyone needs a new one. Plus, bump the value of these other ones just to bring everyone more in line. That will happen. You should have no worries over that. We're as I said, we're all about the balance. We want this game to
double down on that, perhaps just reassure, and then you can do some rules questions because obviously everyone knows I have no idea on the rules. I just make them up, but I do need to go and get a beer. So I'll answer this, then you can do rules, and by the time I'm back,
there's an interesting question about RPGs there.
Okay, well we'll come on to that in a second.
Let me find it. I'll bring it up.
If you buy a dwarf Mantic army, we make the same money as if you buy a Zakali Mantic army. We're not owned by public shareholders, and therefore every quarter needs to get bigger and bigger. Our job is to make more people play our game. The only way Mantic can grow is more people play Kings of War, or Epic, or Halo, or any of our games. But the only way. So I really don't care if you play with a dwarf army or a Zakali army, or an elf army. That's the oldest to the newest. Zakali to elves, doesn't matter to me. I do care if you play with Mantic troops or not. And I did propose the rules on many occasions, and the bastards turned me down, all three of them, that if you're playing with non-Mantic armies, they were 15% more expensive than a Mantic unit. So if you took GW dwarfs, they were, 75 points a unit instead of 60 points for GW. And I think it was a bloody good rule. But there we are. What do I know? So we have no incentive for codex creep. It doesn't matter to us. Our incentive is to get more people to play. And that's why go out and get your mate to play, take it back to the club, become a zealot again, because we need that. We need it. We need it. And Epic's kind of going crazy because people haven't had a fantastic 8-faction 10 mil army game to play for a long time. And I think Halo has its own IP fans and people that are miniatures curious, and that's growing like a weed. But I I beg and request, go and play Kings of War with your mates. What we've built, and I saw one earlier that was saying half of us were playing for the first time in years, we took it back to the club. After a morning, those guys were all converts. And I think that's what Alessio's unlocked for us. And I can promise you, we have no incentive and no intention to do anything other than keep armies getting exciting and buggering around and having good fun with them and making them spicy.
That's something that actually people may not believe that, but no company, any company I've worked for, Codex creep is never intentional. It's not a thing you aim for. Of course, you're not. It happens sometimes. You get excited and you miss a rule and things get, but that's never the intent. It may be an unfortunate consequence sometimes, but it's definitely not a policy. Believe me or not.
I'm not sure in their case, but we're not.
No, it isn't. No, it
I've just
isn't.
been likened to Tom
Nobody
Kirby.
does.
You can piss off, Matt Lee. Okay, I'm going to go get myself a beer. You guys do something serious and grown up while I'm out.
So another rules question that we've got is around specifically having brutal and stacking on multiple different units. So if a unit has brutal D3, does it stack with other sources of brutal? So for example, the Edge Grenadiers, which we've seen people talk about in the past with brutal D3, they add the item Pipes of Terror, and then the Gastromancy command, they can get a lot of brutal. Is that intentional?
Right.
I can take that one. Yes, they do stack. I think that the rules will say if you've got two sources of, say you had two sources of brutal itself, just brutal 3 and brutal 1, for whatever reason, you make a choice as to which one you do. But if you've only got brutal 1, say, and then you've got an item which gives you a +1, and then a command order that gives you another +1, yes, those things stack together.
Cool. Let's see. I've got a lot of questions for Ronnie, actually, in the 11, of course. Alessio, this is a good one for you. So what was the idea and thought process behind the increased amount of turning allowed during movement 4th edition?
Yeah, that was very much a freedom. And I felt that the only being able to move forward at the double, while has the advantage of being very clear, very simple, had a little bit of predictability, too much predictability. So it was a bit too obvious to know what the other units were able to do next turn, and a bit less. You had less freedom to surprise the opponent with a sudden change of direction, a turn of the line. So I think it gave more freedom for players to execute a plan, to maybe a surprise plan. So to actually, it would give more dynamic intent to your tactics and strategies in the game, to surprise the opponent with something unexpected and change position of your army, reposition quickly. So that was it. It was to make it more fluid, more tactical, more interesting, I guess, with a very, very, very simple change.
And I think the feedback we've seen is that people are actually enjoying that, and it hasn't impacted. I think there was a little bit, again, back to trepidation of when we announced that rule was happening. People were like, well, what does that mean for the game and the movement phase and everything else? But I actually think now people are actually experiencing it. It's it's obviously changed the game. I think probably lines are more fluid and engaging faster, so you're into combats are happening faster, and key combats and things in the game are happening at an earlier point, having to wait till much later in the game, which I think changes the whole dynamic and shape of things, but in an exciting way, I think. Yeah,
I think less predictability is the key point here. Is really that there is a big, this unit where before I knew it would just go forward and I knew where it was going. Now it could go left or right, and therefore it's more interesting.
And Alessio, since you're still talking, I know you saw this question. I'm going to let you hijack the stream for just a second. Questions about some things that could be in the works.
Yes. Would I love, whether we're going to do a Kings of War RPG or a Warpath RPG, I don't know. Ronnie is showing us some beautiful comic there. Yes, I would love if Monty wanted to do a Kings of War RPG or a Kings of War or a Warpath RPG. On the other end, for example, I am a little excited about this new project. Yeah, I'm a big fan. So no, I'm very excited about that. So that one first, and then Ronnie. Yes, I mean let's do a Kings of War one as well, of course.
I think there's certain things we make for our fans, and then there's certain things that we make to bring fans into the Mantic tent. You know, and I think Halo's been a phenomenal way of getting people to play Dead Zone, and at the same time thoroughly indulge their love of Halo. And so at the moment, our RPGs are a recruiter as we get bigger and better, but never say never. I mean, our principal things usually involve toy soldiers. I think the Ghost in the Shell will be a 1, 2, 3, 4 product project. It'll start with an RPG, but I think we have plans for a tactical miniatures game in there. But we'll see. We'll see how it all develops. As to Kings of War IP development and Warhammer, well, I kind of started by saying, why do we do these books? To build out the world and the universe. And I think even after these 6 books, 5 books, I don't think we've even scratched the surface of the insanity that's in my head, and certainly the dark depravity that's in Gilbert's head. Because I want to build a fantasy world. I want to build a compelling, fun, very cool fantasy world. And I think each time we drop one of these armies, it's another huge piece refining what we've done 17 years ago. And it feels like it's getting traction, but it just takes time. It takes time to do something really well. I mean, so
a lot of people have asked about siege rules. Of course, if you write an RPG with smaller amount of models, a skirmishy thing, that's beautiful for a siege scenario and stuff like that. So a smaller scale thing could work better.
So one that I've seen pop up a couple of times. Does Grupp Longtail get blast on spells? Matt?
No. So the blast is for as part of the if you go read the background, it's the gloves that Grupp's got. It's blast combat. So that's kind of thing we're aware of. It didn't clarify it in the rules, so that'll be errata.
Easy thing. So another one in the same kind of rules vein is the intent of Host Shadow Beast for any unit that can take arcane library spells to be able to cast Host Shadow Beast on themselves, regardless of the unit type. Because we know the unit type listed in the entry says infantry and cavalry.
So I think it's probably just the order that they're written in it's caused some confusion. But Host Shadow Beast is for those unit types. So to cast on yourself, you have to be one of those types.
Giant monsters couldn't do it, even though they have access to the library, is what we're saying.
Potentially, yeah. And on that vein, I know Scud Clues Luck says spellcaster, that's errata as well. That's they happen. It's a copy paste from the one above. It doesn't. The rat demon does not have spellcaster.
Okay, so a question on the vault. Ronnie, you might be able to help with this one, actually. So Dan is asking, could you talk about the Vault Salamander released? There was a pack release that included models that, for longtime subscribers, that they already owned. Why did the team think that this was a good idea?
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of points here. Firstly, we're kind of pushing the boundaries on the digital space. No one else is doing what we're trying to do here. And we are making inroads. Obviously, it started with the subscription, the Vault subscription 2 years ago. And originally, we very much committed to relaunching prime content, not old guff. So the first game we put on, it was Armada. It seemed like it made a lot of sense. There was resin boats. People could print them at home, and it gave Armada a whole new wave of life. With Kings of War 4th, Matt put 4 armies together. 3 of them were either already half plastics or the all-new Zicali. And we said, well, why don't we do a digital army? And in my simplistic mind, I just go, okay, salamanders, that's the army. You put the army up, you press a button, you click, you download, you go and print it. So if you wanted a Zicali army, all new, you go and buy the Zicali army. If you want the salamanders, you press a thing and the folders download. So we didn't, because we were so busy building it and setting the files up and finding a new way of selling it, because it wasn't in a vault pack, I didn't think about the people that had been getting salamander models along the way. So when someone raised it, which was about 27 seconds after it had gone up, and said, "Oh, what about me? I've already got the Phoenix. I've got this. I've got that." We went, "Oh shit! Yes, good point. Absolutely fair enough." So I went to Clive and said, "Oh, Clive, you need to put something up for the guys that have already got the models they've got." And he went, "Yeah, okay." And we whacked to pack up. So it was one of those errors things that we just didn't think about everybody all of the time as we were building it. And we tried to rectify it as quickly as we could. And always those are the times when you don't do everything perfectly. And the background for all of this is, or not and tomorrow read the blog. Because one of the things I've been saying for a long time to the Vault guys is, the problem is, if you want to buy a dwarf fleet right now, or a salamander upgrade pack, I've got a load of salamander plastics. I want a halfling army. Halflings are topical. They came out. I'll buy my plastics. I want to add some aeronauts to it, and I have those in the vault. Or I can go and find them in the vault. You have to scroll through every month and find out where we put the halflings. And they might be in 3 different months. Here's your command upgrade. Here's your aeronauts. So what we're doing is we're changing the whole thing around to just go, what games do you want to play? Armada. I want that boat because I've bought everything and I've never found that in a store. Okay, click, done. And alongside that, you might say, I want to play Firefight faction. Click, done. Or you might say, I want to play Kings of War. And I want to upgrade my halfling army. I want a salamander army. So we're changing the whole shop front to address how I think people now and in the future will want to pick up their models. And we're building it that you can literally get every single pack or a champions faction or a whole salamanders army. And so this hierarchy has kind of taken time, and then we have to go to get the folders and release them over time. But I think tomorrow, salamanders and the epic armies are now simple one-click armies. So I think we're trying to do a lot of stuff in a space that doesn't exist. We can't buy WooCommerce or Shopify and stick our stuff in it. And on top of that, we're also launching our print on demand. So there's 2 or 3 fleets available at the moment that you can't get. So if you're a super hardcore Armada player and you have no printer, no access to a printer, you can't get the fleet. And we're going to rectify that too. So I think tomorrow the Salamanders champion faction goes up. So, we said we were going to do Salamanders digitally. We didn't just do Kings of War. We did Salamanders champions too. So that's going to be available to print on demand. We're going to have to control this because it's a new technology and it's not really geared up for mass manufacture. It's geared up for printing at home, although we have a ton of printers in our room now. We're still learning. But so I think just give us time. We're working hard at it. We've got the Vault that's carrying on. We've got the Companion that's gone from 1 game to 7 games, 6, 7. Champions coming soon. Walking Dead coming soon. There's lots and lots of stuff coming here. Halo went up last year. So that's growing massively. And we are continuing to make the STL part of our business, the ability for you to print your miniatures anywhere in the world, whenever you want, whatever you want, easier and easier than it ever has been. So I appreciate making some mistakes, but I think overall the direction of travel is very positive, and tomorrow's a big D-Day in another step change there.
Okay, let's jump back into a rules question. This one was asked by Richard. Does Chain Lightning bounce 2 times or more than 2 times from the Stormforge Shrine? Matt, I think you know this.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. So the rules say after the first bounce, i.e. the second target that's hit, the attacks on that are based off the first unit that gets hit. It doesn't go any further. So you hit your first unit, it bounces to a second unit. It doesn't then keep chaining because that would go on forever. No. So
listen, they've got Green Rage. Like, let's be reasonable, guys. Not bouncing all over the place. You got one of the best command order in the game, I think.
Yeah, I think the wording says that second attack is based on the first target. If you would get to a third one, the wording would then it wouldn't work. So yes, it doesn't continue to go forever.
So I'm conscious that we are at the hour mark currently, so we'll probably do a few more here. This is one that I think. Go ahead, Ronnie.
No, I was going to say we are. There's some great questions in here that are coming on.
Sure.
Some factions from Rogue. By the way, nice hair there, Ronnie. I mean, these are on-point questions.
Yeah.
They will all get answered. So
this is one that I want to know, actually.
Pughead for Zicali. Yes. Watch this space. So as you know, every owner ends up looking like their dog, or they buy a dog that looks like them, whatever it is. In the next couple of weeks, Alex Gordon will be unveiling his plan for total dogmination. We've got the sculptors to take the back fitting off the plastics, and we've sculpted Chihuahuas and St. Bernards and Labs and Alsatians and lots of different dogs in Zicali armor with Zicali heads. And I think we're going to run a big promo where you can just buy the Zicali army in plastic and we'll give you some heads for free. And I think you'll be able to get them on the vault as well. So you will be able to now make not only your dog look like you, but your Zicali dog army also look like you. Or you can look like your dog, whichever way you want to do it. But yeah, so dogs coming, dog heads coming, going to be huge, going to be very good fun. Can't wait to see them.
Can you make an army with 101 Zicali?
I'm sure you can if you try hard.
I'm sure you can.
I'm sure that, and I think at this point somebody now has to.
Yeah. One question that wasn't asked specifically, but I've seen pop up quite a bit, was basically there's people that are unsure on a unit. If they see it, maybe the intention of the unit has changed. Ice Elementals in Northern Alliance have been one that I saw mentioned quite a bit. Like, is this intentional? And I think we want to get out the message to basically say, we think everything that we have out there as of now is correct.
Yeah.
So it's important to
in that specific example, yes, that was intentional.
Yeah.
So yes,
I think
the
like
role of companies has changed.
We put beta on because we acknowledged when we launched there was going to be some typos, but I think those typos have been done. Was it the Tidal Swarm?
Yes.
Yeah. Right, that was a typo. One of those things.
I will go through forums and everywhere else, and I'll make sure that I collect up everything that's maybe loose and stuff like that, and make sure Elliot's got it, and it's all done on the companion. And I guess and following from that, I don't know if people are aware of the Kings of War forums, but if you go to KOW forum without the S, so just forum online, that's the place to go to talk about Kings of War. It was set up by Fred a few years ago now. Your Kings of War projects, your Kings of War rules questions, etc., etc. There is a good thread on there for questions for Alessio. Every so often, then I'll harvest those up. We'll discuss them. They'll form part of FAQs. You can report any UI things with the companion and all that. Anything Kings of War. And there's some people with some great projects on there as well. Armies they're building. That's the place to go. And because they're forums, it stays there forever. So you can go back and look at threads. You can go and read things. Facebook groups are great for quick interaction, but things disappear and you can't see them forever, etc., etc. So KOW forum, those Kings of War forums. That's the place to go. That's if you want to occasionally catch me, I will be looking around the threads on there. But yeah, definitely great questions to the community and ones we harvest for Alessio and things like that.
I promise. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to go through the FAQs. Honestly.
Yeah, I think what we're saying is there's a big tournament in Oz next weekend. I've got the rum. I'm not sure any of it will get there. I'm going to drink it on the way and pretend it exploded in the car. We have precedent there. But we're very much viewing that what they're going in with in terms of army lists, in terms of using the app, whatever, that's Kings of War. It says beta, but at the moment, I don't think we're waiting to change anything. I think around the first book, there will be some tweaks, but we're going to try and not do too many. We want people to play, because as I do this and you do that to me, oh, wow, I never knew that was there. There is a whole load of things that certainly Matt, when he was doing the army lists, and with Kyle went, this does this does that. And there is some of those changes like the ice elementals. We want people to now play. Just go and play, go and play, go and play, go and play. Apologies if you have to buy a couple of core units to balance your army up, but it was always a rank and flank game. The clue there is the fucking ranks. And also, it's part of my evil plan for $1 billion. So, but hopefully people are getting, look, we just did this because we wanted to bring that there's 3 or 4 core units. There is some issues in it. We will find them. We will tweak them. It's going to keep evolving and developing. Stick with it. Enjoy it. But what you're playing right now is Kings of War 4th. Is that fair, Kyle?
Yeah, definitely.
I think this is the go at it now. Go and smash each other's faces in. Tell us what you're doing. We've got a huge tournament next week in Oz. UK Masters is coming up. Tell us what you think. We will be watching. We'll be looking for it. Make sure we can pick up any unforeseens, and then we'll start spicing it up. And alongside that, we're going to be recruiting like crazy, and we're going to be running big global tournaments and big global events that will make things real fun.
Yeah, just because I know people have asked when it's coming, so that the questions that we've answered tonight will form part of it, but we'll draft an FAQ. Ronnie will take it to Clash of Kings in Oz. Anything that comes out there, we'll add to it as well. My goal is to get the first FAQ out for everyone to answer all these questions that first week of Feb.
So obviously we've had a lot of changes, and Sterling is asking if there are any plans to get a changelog errata working and available. Working and available for non-app users. So is there going to be a PDF download basically that has it?
Yes, I think that the FAQ that we put together alongside it will be an errata document as well. And so yes, there'll be a PDF.
Yes.
Yeah,
and then
absolutely. I think it's very important because you just don't know which are intentions, which are this. Change logs, very, very important. All the new things are being read. We've been doing it through Third. We'll be doing it for this. We're going to try and keep the changes to obviously to a minimum. It's the FAQ and errata, and I'm going to hit them every 6 months with the book. Here's a couple of pages of cool things we've come up with. Here's a couple of pages of clarifications. But the big drops. Hey, here's some new commands. Here's some more fun stuff. We'll kind of hit around the one at the end of the year, so that then when you're going into the following year, the tournament scene has a new bit of spice, has a new way of playing. Away you go.
I think it's important to state that the philosophy of errata and FAQs has to be, if there is a genuine issue, something that is not clear, errata. If there is something a bit softer, FAQ. But we don't make development through errata and FAQs because
correct. We're not doing that.
Save stuff for
correct.
the next edition. Not
it's clarification and errata. The only development will come where the books land. And there is one question I think is essential. Before we finish, can we get a smile from Matt?
I think I've tried to smile a few times in this call. That was only because no one could find a picture at the right angle, I think. And that was it was a video screenshot, wasn't it, you found?
It's a video screenshot for the banner that we used for this event. I basically watched through a video and got to where you were looking at the camera and was like, screenshot.
Loving that one. Dungeon Saga Origins. Dungeon Saga's right on it. Vanguard and Dungeon Saga are, I think, great ways of building the IP and recruiting new people into the world of Panithor. They're on there. And obviously, it wouldn't be me if I didn't plug on X Kickstarter. And it's been so this has been a bit of a labour of love for a long time. Dreadball was massive, and I couldn't find a way of bringing it back that was exciting enough. I couldn't find a way that was going to. It's the best board game we've ever made. It might be the best miniatures board game ever made in the world. I think it's absolute stunning. But so we've decided to make Dreadball All Stars. the MVP game, the end of the season game, the Uber Glitz, the Dread Ball, the Super Bowl of Dread Ball. And we just decided how can we make it pretty well? New sculpts, brand new sculpts, everything new sculpts, different worlds and different plays. So when you play your league game, it's actually legacy and you rip things up. And then you think, well, if we've got brilliant sculpts, we do that. Got brilliant, I did the story in the background and we can do all that. What we need is someone who invented to come and write it, the best guy in the world that could possibly be the most perfect person. And no, it's not you, Alessio. It was actually a good board game writer, not a war games writer. So then I went and asked, and anyway, he said yes. And the great news is I can officially announce that.
I was wondering what he was going to say it or not.
I was like, is he going to walk in the frame? And
is he going to say it or not? Brilliant. Well made. Well done.
Well, so that really wrapped up most of our questions. So I would say to the community, any final mentions, throw them in the chat. I know, this is not quite that level, but
maybe in a year or two.
Who knows? Yeah.
Who knows?
That brilliant.
He came back.
And he's back.
Anyway, I think I'm done. Anyway, one announcement. See you, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye. See you in Oz. See everybody at Oz. Bye.
Thank you, Ronnie. Wonderful to have all of you guys here. We've gotten some really positive feedback, I think, overall on the state of the game. What we keep hearing continually is that when they play, it's great. So get out there and actually play some games.
Looking at the comments, I'm normally afraid of looking at the comments, but actually it's been quite nice for a change. Yay.
I think the state of the game is in a very good place. We're getting ready to do quite a bit of recruitment, from what I understand. There's a lot of plans around that. There were some questions around, are we going to have a stretch into additional spaces more than what we've done in the past? And I think that that's an important thing for us to look at. And growing the Kings of War community has been a personal goal of mine. That's, way back from even before I started at Mantic. So I love seeing the game grow. I love that we're at the start of a 4th edition and couldn't be in a better place where it could just explode from here. So I thank you guys. I thank the chat for being here. It was wonderful to have everyone. And we'll look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.